Welcome to the Resilient Butterfly Podcast. My goal is to share inspiring stories of healing and recovery through many diverse approaches and models. Our guests bring incredible lived experiences, insights, and/or professional expertise, each with their own unique path. While we highlight and celebrate these stories, our intention is to inform, inspire, and demonstrate resilience and creativity. This podcast does not endorse any one approach. We believe there is more than one way to heal, and we're here to showcase the resilience and possibilities that exist. Welcome, everyone, back to Resilient Butterfly. I'm Pam Feinberg-Rifkin, your host. Thank you for coming. Today, I have two wonderful guests. Jenni Frumer has returned with another guest, Rose Rosenkrantz, who is going to tell a story of resilience that is so beautiful. And everyone I know is going to love this. But first, I want to introduce again Dr. Jenni Frumer, a nationally recognized leader in social services, trauma-informed care, working as a Chief Strategy Officer and Director of Now for Holocaust Survivors at Morris Life. With over 38 years of nonprofit leadership, she is also the retired CEO of Alpert Jewish Family Services. Jenni holds a PhD in Human Capital Management and serves on the board of the International Center for Multi-Generational Legacies of Trauma. That's quite a mouthful. And Rose Rosenkrantz is a Holocaust survivor and miracle baby born in a Siberian slave labor camp during World War II. Rose's story has inspired audiences across the country, including through programs at Tulane University's Grant Center for the American Jewish Experience and the immersive theater production of Only Miracles, which is based on her family's history. Jenni, if you can share your personal journey. We'll start with you this time. I know that we left you for last time, and I was like trying to get myself together to even talk to you. So we'll start with your personal journey and your work with Holocaust survivors.
Well, thank you, Pam. It's such a pleasure to be here and be here with Rose in particular as well. I have always worked with older adults as far back as I can remember, and chose my career working with older adults and their families. And my grandparents were from Lithuania. My father was born in Lithuania, of course landed in the shores of South Africa like many other Lithuanians to escape the Holocaust. My grandfather's family all perished as a result of the Holocaust. They were in the small shtetl of Ponevezh in Lithuania, and many of them were burned in the synagogue and murdered in the forest. So I grew up around my grandparents and heard of, trying to speak Yiddish and trying to keep it away from us, of what happened to their families. But I've spent most of my career working with Holocaust survivors and older adults. And so it is such a natural part of who I am and part of my DNA.
Yes, and you do it so well.
Thank you.
And Rose, you, in your own right, being born in this camp to parents that potentially would not even survive, where does this story begin? And just take us on this journey.
Well, thank you for inviting me. My family is from Poland, and when Poland was invaded by the Nazis, everyone really in Europe thought the war was short-lived because Great Britain and France had declared war on Germany. So people just try to have a temporary fix and go somewhere until the war was over, especially if you were military age. My father and his brother were 21 and 23, and they decided to go to the border with Russia, because Russia was on side of the Allies, and they were stuck on the border. My mother and her brother, who was military age, likewise headed east away from the Germans and was stuck on the border with Russia. And Russia found itself with hundreds of thousands of Jews running away. And what were they going to do? So they came up with a plan to tell the Jews that they were spies, have an excuse to imprison them. And they shipped most of the Jews up to the Siberian labor camps. Siberia is a very vital area for the Russians. It's rich in minerals. It's rich in lumber and timber. And so my father, who got separated from his brother, was put in a camp up near the Arctic Ocean. It was one of the ones that you just didn't live through. It was, the cold was unbelievable. Most people just would wipe their noses and their noses would come off with their wiping. It was that bitter. And of course, they were not dressed. They didn't have the clothes, the food. He managed to survive 2 years there. My mother and her brother were sent independently to a camp that was a little further south, but still in Siberia. And at some point, my mother, in carrying lumber, they had her work in the redwood forests, cutting down redwood trees, of all things. And she was carrying lumber into a building, and she started talking to a young man who was working on an engine of some sort, and who ended up being my father. And they discovered that they were from the same city and suburbs in Poland, and they took up discussions and all of that. They were not necessarily a match. They weren't looking for a match, but my mother was going to be shipped to another area. But if she was married, they would keep her in the camp. The Russians had lost 30 million or so people in World War I, and they were always looking to have their population increase. So they always encouraged children. My mother went to my father and said, listen, if I'm married, I don't have to go to this particular work site that I'll never come back from. And he said, nah, I have a girlfriend back home. And my mother said, I have a boyfriend back home, but we're not going to get out of here. It doesn't look too well. It's 1943. The war didn't end yet. So my uncle married them. He's not a rabbi. He just pronounced that they were married. And
this is in the Siberian camp?
In the Siberian camp. And they were given a barracks. My father put some crates together and created a bed. And about a year and a half later, although women did not have children there, miraculously, I was conceived and born, and the only child in the camp.
Wow.
And
where was
it was
do you know if
interesting.
you were born with just the people around helping versus a doctor? There was no doctor?
There was no doctors in the camp. There were midwives. And so, I mean, you weren't prepared for a child. There were no children's clothes of any kind. Obviously, no cribs, nothing like that. So my father got a pillow, and he wrapped me up in a pillow, took me home from the hospital barrack to their barrack. And my mother was able to find some clothes that people had passed away. And she was able to make some clothes for me. And so that was my beginnings.
So she hand sewed clothes just from the material from other clothes,
Yes.
from adults' clothes. Wow. And your mother, how far along, do you know even how far along in pregnancy was she before she recognized that she was, did she know right away in her pregnancy?
You know, I never asked her that question.
I'm just curious because
Yeah.
I'm sure she was not very, that she was small in nature just because they didn't have a lot of food.
Correct.
How was her health?
As well as could be expected under the circumstances. I know she would dig into it's perpetually, the perpetual ice there. She would dig into the ice, and if she was lucky, she would find a potato. And she would cook the potato and cook it, and then made soup, and that would try to last a few days. So they were resourceful. My father had a beautiful operatic voice, as Jenny knows. And the Russians had also arrested the Moscow Opera Company for whatever reason, just to have, again, more people up in the Siberian area. And he heard them singing one day, and he asked them if he could join them, and sure enough, they accepted him, and he got more food. So any way they could be resourceful to get food so they could last another day. And that's how life was there.
So as a newborn, your mom was able to sustain you, obviously.
I was nursed.
And for how long, at what point did they leave with you from the camp?
After about 2 months, the Polish government in exile was asked to repatriate some of their Polish prisoners and made an agreement with the Russians to help rebuild the Ukraine area because Ukraine was the breadbasket for Russia. So they moved some of us, they put us on cattle trains, and it took us about a month to get down to the Ukraine. And we spent the last 8 months of the war in Ukraine rebuilding that area.
In what way? What do you mean by rebuilding? Literally pounding?
Literally
building
the
buildings.
machines, anything that needed to be done. Railroads, buildings, anything.
Do you know how many people there were that came from Siberia back into Ukraine at the time?
At least one train full. I don't know the number.
And it took a month by train.
It took a month. It was not a good month. I got sick and almost died twice on the train. But again, they were resourceful. And my father said he would give free haircuts. Not that he knew how to do it, but he would, to get some money and to pay a woman who had a little sulfur with her. And they got some medication for me. So anything they could do.
Do you know how big you were when you were born and how over a period of a year? How?
My mother said everyone was very surprised that I was it looked like I was a chunky. And they were carrying me around to all the barracks to show them a baby. It was really an inspiration for the people around.
I bet you there were a lot of people taking care of you.
Well, I don't think Mother allowed anyone to go near me, truthfully.
And so how long were you in Ukraine with your family?
Just the 8 months.
And then where?
And then we followed the Russian soldiers as they were going further west. And we were on their tails practically, trying to get back to Poland because there were a lot of stories about what the Nazis had done to the Jews. And my parents, like all the others, were hoping they were just stories, that there was no truth. How could the most cultured people in Europe possibly gas and cremate other human beings? There's just no way you could believe stories like that.
Yeah.
And they were hoping that they were going to go back to their city, Lodz, and find their parents and their siblings. And they finally made their way back. And my mother went to her house first, and she was anxious. She's knocking on the door, and Mama, open the door. It was 5 years, and I'm here. And the door opened a crack, and there stood the gardener. And he looked at her, and he didn't recognize who this person was. And he looked at her and he said, "I thought you were dead. Don't you know everybody else is?" And that's how my mother found out
That her family had
that her
killed.
family had perished.
And the gardener took over the house?
And the gardener, like many Poles, went into the Jewish homes and took them and wouldn't allow us back into the house. My father, we went then into the city of Lodz to find out my father had left his mother, who had just had a baby 1 month before the war broke out, which he didn't even see the new baby. There were 7 siblings, the parents, and they all went into the Lodz ghetto. And just 2 of his siblings were alive, which he did not see. He didn't see them. They had written into the Black Book, all the towns that you returned to had books that you signed into to say, you're alive, and people would check them. And he checked the book, and he saw that 2 of his brothers had made it, and they were now, had moved on to a displaced persons camp in Germany, awaiting to leave there to go on into the United States. So my father was anxious to see the last of his family. So we then knew we could not make a home in Poland. The Polish people were not receptive to the Jews after the war because they would have to give up the places where they lived. They took over. There were pogroms. A lot of Jews were murdered by the Poles after the war.
Oh, after the war, too.
After the war. There was a terrible pogrom in a city called Kielce, where about 140 Jews came back, and they were just murdered in the street. So
to survive death camps and then be murdered after.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't have any.
So then, where do you go?
Yeah.
And then firstly, who are you? You're not a daughter anymore because your parents. You're not a sister anymore. You have no siblings. So first you had to decide, first you had to think about who you were at this point in your life. And where do you go? The doors were not open to Jews after the war. The United States still had There were still barriers all over. You needed to wait for visas. And so we were in a displaced persons camp in Germany for 3 years,
Oh, wow.
waiting to get a visa to the United States.
At what age were you then? Like 4?
I was 2, 3, and 4. And that's my first memory, is of the DP camp.
And what do you remember of that camp?
The room we were assigned, a school building was subdivided for survivors. And we were given, I guess one of the classrooms was subdivided. So we were given a room, and I remember my parents had a bed and I had a little cot. And I remember the doll. I have a picture of. I gotta show you. This is the doll that my mother found. Now, you notice it has no legs. But I didn't notice that because to me, I just looked at its eyes and its face.
Was this a doll that someone had
Someone had thrown away.
Oh, goodness. Actually, in this picture, it could be, looks a little real, this doll.
Yeah. It's true.
But you didn't know that was...
No, to me, I looked at the face just like you did.
Sure.
And this is the first picture of me taken in the Ukraine.
And this is your mother?
Yes.
What a sweet face.
So, and I certainly don't look malnutritioned.
No, you don't. Your mother somehow was able to feed you well.
Yes, she did.
That's incredible. And so at the age of 4, you left the displaced camp?
We went on to American naval vessel, and we arrived in the Brooklyn Navy Yards in New York. And we had no English, no job, no place to live, and $20.
Oh, my goodness. Incredible. So what, where did you even start? Where did your parents start?
So where do you start? We went to one of my father's brothers that made it to the States. They had arrived 3 years earlier, on the first ship out, and they had a basement apartment, I remember, in a tenement, and we moved in there, but the sister-in-laws did not get along, and so we had to leave there and find a place to live until my father was able to get some type of a job. The American Army was coming back, and they got first dibs on apartments. They got first dibs on jobs. And my father, just with his wonderful voice, because he didn't know English, you just, you had your hands tied behind you.
Sure.
And interesting survivors, the American Jews were not receptive to hearing any of the stories. They were not jumping to help. And so survivors started just to seeking out each other.
Why do you think that was then?
It could have been through guilt.
I was thinking that.
That they're alive. They just didn't want to hear anything. That's why you don't have, if there are any books that were written right after the Holocaust by survivors. I know you have Elie Wiesel's book, Night, but that's not till 1960. It took a lot of digesting time to just just to find yourself, just to get your thoughts. The losses that survivors experience was so great. The nightmares were terrible.
Yeah.
The voices that they heard, the shadows that they saw were so overpowering that they couldn't put it down into words. And it took a while.
Well, some of those effects are still going on, obviously, from generation to generation.
It's definitely.
Without, I mean, back in the particular the 40s, 50s, 60s, there wasn't known trauma care for people. There was nothing that people could seek out some work to be able to get over to be able to get past the nightmares.
They never did.
Yeah.
I carry an albatross around my neck to this day. Cry myself to sleep many a nights for people who I never met. So it's a burden that I have. And then what do you do with it? You know, you don't try to pass it on to your children, but they have it.
Sure.
My grandchildren have it. You know, they're involved in things. So not easy.
No, it isn't. And generational, I think we know more about generational trauma now,
Yes.
more than ever.
Yes.
However, it's so physiologically embedded into all of the, into our bodies and our minds that it's really to be able to, I don't want to use the word fix because it's not a fix. It's to be able to get past and be able to heal from it, to be able to heal. And it takes a lot. And your children, how many children did you have?
I have 2 children and 5 grandchildren.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And your parents, how long did what type of job did your dad finally get?
Well, they needed a porter in a bakery to carry sacks of flour. He had a wife and a child, and that was the only thing available to someone who did not speak English. So he took it, and we were able to get an apartment. And my mother, I wouldn't try to get a job, but I was such a frightened child and carried on. She couldn't find anyone to watch me that I would stay with. So she couldn't work. And we managed, I never thought I was missing anything growing up, even though obviously we were always lacking things. We ate meat for Shabbat. We had the one chicken, and that was it as far as food goes. And I remember a funny story. I don't know if I ever shared with Jenny. I remember going with my mother to the market and for Shabbat to get a chicken. And it was, if you got a chicken with the feathers and they had to take the feathers off, it was 10 cents. 10 cents. And my mother, to save the 10 cents, I remember her put a chicken between her legs and sit there taking the feathers off the chicken. Such a memory of a child who was 5, 6 years old.
And did you start going to school when you were 5, 6?
The schooling was very challenging. Obviously, English was not my first language. I spoke Yiddish and Polish. And so when I went to school, the children wouldn't hold my hands playing in the court, in the yard, schoolyard. And for kindergarten, and the teachers stepped in to do it. But what affected me most with school is in first grade, when the teacher asked a question and I was able to understand what she said, and I raised my hand, and I guess I sounded strange, didn't, and the kids in the class laughed so loud and so long that laughter stayed with me, I guess, even till this day.
Sure.
And I decided that I would never have that again. So I made it my mission never to speak again in class. And that went through elementary, middle, high school, and college. I never spoke in class.
Really?
Never. And I graduated with a teaching degree. And I said, how am I going to manage this? I never knew if I had an accent anymore. And so I was afraid, to stand in front of a class. And I got married early and had children.
You were still in New York during this time?
Still in New York. And then a few years after that, a program was starting in 1988 called the March of the Living. They were looking for people to go on it, survivors and teens. And we were going to go 1 week to Poland, visit the camps, and then 1 week on into Israel, going from darkness to light. And my husband said, I have to go. And I said, go back to Poland? He said, yes, you have to go. So I signed up for the program.
How old were you at that point?
1988, 40, something. And I went as the videographer, believe it or not. They didn't want to include me as a survivor. So I went back to
Let me back
Auschwitz.
up. Why did they not want to include you as a survivor? Because you were not in one of the
I was
German
not in one of
camps?
the camps, in one of the German camps. They didn't think that being born in a slave labor camp was the type of survivor they were looking for.
Wow.
They wanted one that actually was maybe from Auschwitz or one of the other concentration camps. Well, I went to Auschwitz knowing that my grandmother and the two babies were taken on the train there. One of the last transports out of the ghetto, and she was killed there. And I went to inside the gas chambers, and I went next to the crematoria, and I just felt, I heard her voice, and she said to me, you be my voice. I don't have a voice anymore, and tell everybody what happened to us here. And I came back, went to my synagogue, and asked the principal if I could speak to the school, and just started to talk.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it.
And
I
then,
was
and that from that
just
point, you haven't been able to stop talking.
exactly right.
That's incredible. Well, thank goodness that your husband insisted you're going on this trip.
And that's where I met this young lady.
Ah,
She was my roommate one year.
really? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. I'd gone as a counselor for the 36 students that were going from the Palm Beach County area. So it was one bus, full bus. And it was a unique experience. And being with Rose made it extra special.
So the two of you have known each other for,
Since 94,
wow,
at least, if not 86, actually.
right? Incredible. Very strong relationship. Your children, so you were in New York. Did you teach in New York?
A little.
A little. What does that mean?
I found it difficult, as I said, to be able to speak in front of a class. I really went into teaching moving down here, but they gave me the job of being the director of a school, and I found that very satisfying because I was able to do things that I had always wanted to do. The rabbi in New York, before we moved, the rabbi in New York said to me, if you want to teach here, and I know that you're a Holocaust survivor, please don't teach the children anything too heavy on the Holocaust. We don't want to depress them. At which point I said, then I don't teach Holocaust light. So I can't. So I was never enthusiastic about teaching.
I mean,
that.
how do you not teach? How do you teach Holocaust and not tell the stories?
Exactly.
I mean, that's not,
and not depress the kids.
yeah. Well, we all need to know the stories, and a particular time that we're in now. How do you feel about what's going on in the world in regard to anti-Semitism and the what's happening in the U.S. versus the European countries? There seems to be a lot more of that, and you met with a former neo-Nazi recently. Tell us about that.
I was asked to by Jenni again to meet with an ex-neo-Nazi. So we sat on opposite sides of a table, and we could ask each other questions. And it was filmed. It was very informative. I didn't know how I wanted to deal with him, whether I should be upset, whether I should be angry, how it would turn out was a big question. How I should deal with him. Should I shake his hand when I meet him? There was a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And I think what played into the success of the dialogue, I think we were honest with each other. We listened to each other, and we landed up hugging. Mm-hmm. So I think to try to answer your question, how do you deal with anti-Semitism that seems to be growing? You don't have control of world events. Mm-hmm. You don't have control that it's been an excursion or a war with Iran. But you need to deal honestly with your family and if you're a teacher, with your students, and make sure that they get information that's factual, that's firsthand, not secondhand, and just have a dialogue, just talk, and hopefully they can understand that prejudice and discrimination just grows and from silence, because your responsibility as a person is to, when you see something, you need to say something and do something. I think the bystanders in Europe were the main perpetrators of the Holocaust, because it didn't have to snowball.
Sure. Nothing was stopped.
To what happened unless people, so including the churches, including the Pope, who said nothing.
Right. So in meeting with a former neo-Nazi, tell tell me and the listeners, what was his, what changed him to now speak on community and not hatred?
He was living at home, part of a rock band that whose songs were very anti-Semitic, and he became a white nationalist and put swastikas all over his body. And living at home, he needed to go get a job, and his father sent him to someone's place of work, and it just happened to be a Jewish man. And he got to know him. And his Jewish boss was willing to take an employee who had swastikas all on him. And just, I think the one-on-one, getting to know a Jew, he probably never did.
Right.
I think that's paramount. You know, so many people have never met Jews, and yet
Right. There's hatred for people that they don't even know.
exactly, and presuppose all kinds of things about what Jews do or don't or are.
It's the unknown, like any other minority, I guess to say. It's the, it's not much different than the bullying that occurs in schools.
Exactly.
And it's just at adult level.
Yeah.
That the bullying continues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it escalates.
Yeah. I speak about bullying primarily to schools. That's what I speak about, because this cyberbullying, they don't realize the effects of bullying and what it can do, and the suicides that have, how many suicides have come because of bullying, and laughing at other kids and singling people out, because we're all different. We're all different.
Sure, we are.
And our differences together make us strong.
Right. We're all different humans.
Exactly.
And what do you think for you growing up the way you were, and also being part of obviously a whole lot of people in your family that did not survive, that you don't yourself have any hatred for people, that you have, I could tell, just a love for humanity. What is it that gives that to you?
There was a philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche, and he wrote, "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And the war didn't kill me, and I feel I am here for a purpose. Whether it is my grandmother's voice that I speak through, but I'm here for a reason, and the reason is to speak to groups. And Jenny uses me as much as she can, and I'm usually available to do so. And I don't think there's anything more important that I could do than that. I raised my children; they feel the same way, and are involved with groups and organizations, and certainly my grandchildren the same way. So that's my small part. And that's my mission.
And your life is so much different now than obviously when you were an infant or a little girl, and even in elementary school, junior high school, maybe even high school. Your life is so different, and that you have shown the resilience as a strong woman who's voicing in such a beautiful way humanity, love, connection, and for the ability for people to listen and be with each other. And for you to go and sit with someone who was a former neo-Nazi, that's a strong, resilient woman that gives a lot of courage. Do you have any other pictures you'd like to show?
Well, I have. There's no way that when you go to Auschwitz, your life isn't changed. So anyone that can take a trip, I strongly encourage them to go to the sites, because there's no way from a book you're going to learn anything. When you pick up, to this day, it's 75 years, 80 years after the Holocaust, and you put your hand in to the ash pits and you pull out part of a spinal cord, you know it wasn't just put there. Wow. I mean, it's just, so it's really important to encourage and support groups and organizations that do take kids.
Sure.
And I encourage the adults to go as well. So I do that. I show you that. Here is a picture of gas chamber, and the blue is from the Zyklone B gas. So you're standing there, you see scratch marks on the walls in the gas chamber for people trying to get out. You see this. There's no way you can read that in a book for it to make any type of sense to you. So what I did also with Israel, I asked for a school that has Jewish, Arab, and Christian kids in it to make a blanket, a peace blanket, and my kids in the school where I was the director in here in Florida, I asked my kids also to make some type of a peace blanket. And when I went to Israel on one of the trips, I took and we exchanged blankets. This is from the school that has the Arab, Christian, and Jewish kids, so that we could, so they can see that we can all live together. The kids can, their view on
that's so beautiful.
Making something.
Wow.
And just the idea that you have these three groups who you think can't work
Christian,
together.
Arab,
and they
Jewish.
And they did. Arab, Jewish, and Christian children in
This
Israel.
is wonderful. Wow.
And they put together this blanket, and I brought it back, and it's hanging in the synagogue. So that's another thing. I use this when I go to schools as well. I said, you see, you have 3 different types of eggs, but when you crack them, look at that. You can't tell.
They're all the same.
They're all the same.
Yeah, we were just talking about the fact that we're all human. We're all the same inside. Yeah. We still have the same blood. We still have the same organs.
Yeah.
Well, you have led a very remarkable life, Rose. And I am so grateful that you've been able to come and share your story. And I hope that a lot of people will listen and be able to take something from this to have some peace in the world that we don't have right now.
And know that you have choices. You have choices, and you just have to learn to make the right choices. And when you hear stories from survivors, because we're getting fewer by the day, pick up and become their voices, because we have still people who are, they just are Holocaust deniers, and they have a responsibility. Anyone that listens to my voice today, now that you've heard some stories, you now can carry on and share.
Absolutely. Do you have other remarks, Jenny?
Well, I was going to say that what Rose is referring to is what we sometimes call bearing witness.
Yes.
And really hearing stories and taking them forward. And also earlier you had mentioned about how long it took survivors to actually talk about their experiences. And I think what we now know about trauma is that we refer to the Holocaust as malignant trauma, any genocide as malignant trauma, because it was at the hands of other humans. And that kind of malignant trauma really becomes epigenetic in so many ways, which is what you were referring to.
Yes.
and not having the language. How do you describe what happened? And there were language barriers, and there were no words for this kind of atrocity.
No. How can you even imagine such atrocities?
Right. And Rose is one of our ambassadors at the Holocaust Learning Experience as well, working with students who come and visit the memorial to the 1.5 million children who were murdered at the hands of the Nazis. And the Holocaust Learning Experience continues, and Rose is one of our testimonials, talking about her experience. And the program is now in more than half of the school districts in the state of Florida and in 9 other states, an ecosystem of around 3 million students who are learning courage, resilience, moral clarity. And those kinds of moral clarity is often what Rose is referring to as well.
Sure. To experience the life that you've experienced, live the life that you experienced, and be able to be such a gracious woman without hatred is so incredible. And I wish the world would just listen and open their hearts up to something more that you're such an example for.
I don't know if there's time, but I used to write poetry, a lot of poetry. I have a poem I wrote.
Please.
Is there time?
Yes.
Okay.
I will make the time.
Okay. We who have lived the impossible saw darkness triumph over light. Who would have blamed us if we had struck back with might? Yet people refuse to listen, to understand, to share. Now some want to rewrite history, to change it if they dare. Were the ovens only bakeries? The camps convalescent homes? Then where are over 6 million people when there are no tombstones? How do you unveil horrors without offering some measure of hope? Without visualizing death? How do you look to the future without visualizing death on every slope? How could we have described to a child who had no morsel of bread what it would have been like to have had a piece of cake instead? Or describe an apple, peach, or pear, or what sugar tasted like? Is there such a thing as happiness? Are there Jews living without fright? Asked a 5-year-old to her mother, "Mother, are we going to die? Have we lived long enough? What's a butterfly?" Over the years, I've asked all the questions, but I have found no answers. There never has been any. There never should be any.
It's beautiful. Well, thank you, Rose. Thank you, Jenni, for both of you being here today. I really appreciate it. It's very timely. And I wish you all the best. You're a bright, shining star for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the conversation today. If you are seeking help for yourself or a loved one, please reach out to our Feinberg Consulting team at 248-538-5425. That's 248-538-5425. And check out our website at feinbergcare.com. I'm grateful for our guests and all who have joined us today. Make sure you follow us on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.